Ópera apresenta ExpoGestão.
Olá, quero dar uma palavrinha com você. Dizer que me sinto feliz por estar aqui. É muito bacana. Agora passarei a falar inglês, porque este é todo meu português. So I'm really happy to be here with you. And it was a lovely music. I almost feel like I don't need to speak about happiness anymore because we now are feeling happy after the music, right? Well, but I do have a few things to share with you. And there are too many ideas that I would like to leave you before you go. The first idea is that we need to care and pay attention to our happiness and the happiness of our employees. Because there is a strong link between happiness, engagement, performance, and productivity. So we as persons function better when we feel good, and happy employees are a good idea for business. So happy persons make productive companies. And the second idea is that there is a lot that we can do to improve our happiness and the happiness of our employees, because there are simple strategies that are very effective, are enforceable in the short run, and the good news is they are almost zero cost. So there's many things we can do. Some context. So perhaps you have noticed that these two words, well-being and happiness, are everywhere now. It's almost as it's the new fashion, right? But the study of happiness is not new. It started around the 1940s in other fields of knowledge like economics. And finally, in 2006, Time magazine put the science of happiness in the front page. And then a year after, The Economist started talking about how to measure happiness and why we should measure happiness. And now the United Nations is producing a World Happiness Report every year, because we now know that gross domestic product is not a good enough measure of a country's well-being, so we need to be measuring something else. If you think about it, there's one thing we all humans have in common, and it's we all want to be happy. We all have this desire to feel good, right? So one of the most common answers to the question, what is the most important thing in life, is being happy. And if you ask parents what is the most important thing they would like for their children, they will tell you we want them to be happy. So it's like we are wired for happiness. We are trying to be happy all the time. If you go to the Amazon webpage and type in happiness, you will get about 20,000 hits with the 9 steps, the 7 decisions, the 5 ways to happiness. So we're looking for happiness even in the books. And if we cannot find it there, we go to the doctor and ask him if he can give us a pill in order to bring our happiness level up. So we all want to be happy. So maybe happiness is important, right? But the question is happiness only important because we all want to be happy, because it feels good to be happy, or are there any other benefits to happiness? And the answer is happiness is more than that. There are clear benefits of happiness in every area of our lives. So personally, happy people tend to have better social connections. They have better health. They live longer lives. If you take happiness to the family, then you will see that happy people are better parents, right? They get involved with their kids more, they show more affection, they get involved in their activities, they model positive behaviors. And if this is not enough, just try to think the kind of mom or dad you are when you're having a bad day. Not a good idea, right? So if we take happiness to schools, Children and teenagers who are happy persons are better students. They have higher grades, they are better leaders, they make friends, the teachers like them better, they get involved in extracurricular activities, they are good at sports, they don't give up as easily. And as you can imagine, when they leave school, they look better on paper, they have better credentials. Happiness is also related to our health. People who are happy have better health. That is because they have stronger immune systems, they have less internal inflammatory processes, they feel less chronic pain, and when they do get sick, they recover faster. There's also a chemical advantage to happiness. When we feel good, when we are experiencing positive emotions, our brain produces these two hormones, serotonin and dopamine, which are feel-good hormones. And when we are flooded with these substances, we have access to our resources of higher quality. So we are able to think faster, we are able to recover and process information much better, we are able to solve more complex problems. And it's like when you're happy, you are functioning from a higher place. You function better when you feel good. Another way to think about this is like this. So Batman is the happy version of Bruce Wayne. So happiness gives you access to your superpowers. Some interesting facts about happiness, what we know, what the science has found about happiness. So here are a few interesting facts. Number one, men and women are equally happy. Of course, women are challenging this result, right? Across life, women tend to be the least happy around 7 years old, and men tend to be the least happy around 42 years old. So this is good news for me because the worst is past behind me now. Being in love or having a partner is good for you. People who have a love relationship are happier. They have better chances of finding a partner, and once they find it, they have better chances of staying together. And so here's a tip for your next date. Smile. It makes you more attractive. Right? And we found an interesting result in Mexico. We found that that married and widow women are more happy than divorced women. So this means we like our men with us or 3 feet under, but nothing in between. Being smart does not make you happier. And what about money? Can money buy happiness? Well, the answer is it depends. If you don't have enough money to cover your basic needs, like food, shelter, schooling, health, then money is important for happiness and well-being. But if you have enough money to cover basic needs, then extra money adds little to your happiness. You should be finding happiness somewhere else. So if you have lots of money, it's better to spend it on somebody else, or paying your debts, or spending it in experiences and not in more stuff, right? So Brazil, in the UN report, the World Happiness Report, you came this year in number 22. This is good because it puts you in the happiest countries in the world. The list is 150. So position number 22 is really good. Bad news is you came down from number 17 last year, so a little drop in happiness. So now, one of the topics that has been gaining more importance lately is the idea of happiness at the workplace. So maybe you are wondering, happiness at the workplace, how is that possible? I mean, I can talk about happiness on one side and work in the other side, but I cannot see these two words in the same sentence. What do you mean happiness at work? It's work. Work is something that you survive. It's not something that you are meant to enjoy, right? So this is why we love Fridays and we hate Mondays, because we have this philosophy of work. But we need to start thinking differently about work and happiness. If you heard from Gallup, Gallup is a company that makes surveys around the world, and they identified these 5 elements as universal to human happiness. And work turned out to be one of the most important ones. Why? Because 2 elements. Our job is part of our identity. What we do defines us. So if you are in a social gathering, they'll ask you 2 questions. Question number 1 is, what's your name? And question number 2 is, what do you do? So what do you do defines you. The other one is a matter of time, because it is at work where you spend most of your waking hours, 5 days a week, 50 weeks per year for about 30 to 40 years. So it's a good idea if you can find happiness at work, right? If things are not going okay in your work, then you will have negative consequences in all areas of your life. And so try to think about how is your day or your after the day when you had a bad day at work. It tends to contaminate the rest of what you do. Why are we talking about happiness in this context? Some people are saying this should be a new leadership model. And I agree. And I think this is for 3 reasons. Reason number 1 is happiness is good for business. We know that because many research has been throwing interesting data. But for you as a person, I mean, it's good for you to be happy because it's good for you happy at work, because happy people turn to have higher salaries. They are better evaluated by their colleagues and boss, so performance reviews tend to be higher for happy people, and they get promoted faster. So it is a good idea for your career to work on your happiness level. But it's also good for business, because happy people have very nice qualities that translate into money for companies. They show up for work, they get sick less often, they are more creative, they give better customer service, they have less burnout, they have less accidents at the workplace, and they are more loyal to the company. So as you can see, in the one hand, it increases income and it lowers costs for company, and it has a positive impact at the bottom line. So it's good for business. Reason number 2 has to do with this link between engagement and performance. So most companies are trying to get their employees engaged in order to improve their performance, right? This is a very well-known formula. But how is it working? Well, not very good according to Gallup. This is a worldwide survey they carry about engagement, and what they find is that almost 70% of employees around the world are not engaged. And the grays, the dark grays are your employees that are actively disengaged. This means they absolutely hate their jobs, and they are trying to boycott everything going on in the company. They are complaining, they are toxic, and they are praying for the machine to break down so they can have a break, right? And there's only a few greens, who is these people who give the extra mile, who really like their jobs and are there for the company. So there's a lot of people who are not engaged, so it seems like this formula is not working as we would like it to work. So what makes the greens different from the rest? So these are engaged employees, and according to surveys, these people are happier. So green ones have higher levels of happiness. So if there's another thing that we need to think about. If you look around and pay attention to how people behave, we're following this formula. This is the formula that we know really well. You have to be successful in order to be happy. First success, then happiness. And this is why we study really hard, and why we work long hours, and why we compete hard. We want to be successful in order to be happy. There was a survey carried around millennials, and they asked what is the key ingredient for a happy and successful life. 80% said money, being rich. 50% said being famous, and around 30% said having power. So I guess this should be the perfect definition of happiness. Rich, powerful, beautiful, and married to Tom Brady, right? But the thing is, we humans are very interesting because the moment we reach a goal, we accomplish something, what we do is set up a new goal. And this time it should be higher. This time it should be more demanding, right? So what we're doing is pushing happiness one step ahead of us, always around the corner, always when something else happens, when we do this, when we do that. So science says, let's change the formula to a more efficient one, and the more efficient one looks like this. Work on your happiness, and then success will be easier. Why? Remember the Batman and the superpowers? Because when you feel good, you have access to your superpowers, and success is easier. So maybe we have an opportunity here. If you remember this graph, if we can change the formula around, maybe we can turn some grays into greens. If we start leading for happiness instead of leading for success. Third one is new generations are not liking the traditional leadership systems. They are letting us know that they want something different. So what are the leaders doing? First, they are measuring happiness because we care about what we measure. We need to have a reference in order to improve. So this is what we are doing now. We're measuring subjective things along with objective indicators. And they're also turning their attention to positive psychology, right? Martin Seligman is the father of positive psychology, and he noticed that there are some people who have happy lives, successful marriages, they seem to like their job, they are not sad. And so he said, well, why don't we change the traditional question of traditional psychology, which is what is wrong, and why don't we start asking what works? And when you change the question, you get different answers. So now we can identify what is it that makes people happy. What are the characteristics that the happiest people share? I mean, how do they act? What do they do? How do they think? And how can we replicate that? So now we know more. So maybe you are wondering now, so what is happiness? Have you ever think about the formal definition of happiness? Maybe not, but you know how happiness feels, right? Yes? So we don't need a formal definition, but research and academics do need a definition, and it goes something like this. Is the degree to which a person evaluates the quality of her life as favorable, how much a person likes the conditions of her life. So it's a little bit subjective and it's a perception, and this is why you can have someone with perfect objective conditions being miserable and very unhappy, and you can have very happy people who have almost nothing in objective terms. How do we measure happiness? It's really easy, and we're going to do that right here. So on a scale from 1 to 10, where 1 is very unhappy and 10 is very happy, how happy would you say you are, all things considered? Do you have a number in your head already? Yes? It's easy because we all know if we are happy or not, and we also know how happy we are, right? So what's the most important thing we have learned from positive psychology? This one, that there is a good part of happiness that it's up to us. It's an ability that we can learn and we can develop. A good part of our happiness depends on what we do and think every day. And so now the question is, how do we do this, right? So we do this by changing our habits. Because it's one thing to know what we have to do to have a healthy and happy life, but it's a totally different thing to actually do it, right? We know we have to eat healthy, but we don't do it. So we have to build new habits in order to increase our happiness level, because habits are a bridge between what we know we have to do and what we actually do. So what habits? So this we know from the science of positive psychology. These are characteristics that the happiest people share. So the first one is connection. People are the most important things for our happiness. So maybe you have heard of this Harvard happiness study. They've been carrying the longest study in time about happiness. It started in 1938 with 724 men, and they divided them in two groups. Group 1 was comprised of Harvard students coming from very wealthy families with their whole future ahead of us, extremely good life conditions. And in group number 2, you had the poorest teenagers from the Boston area. Very difficult life situation, dysfunctional families, etc. And what they did was, over 75 years, do all kinds of tests, blood tests and scanners, and asking them about happiness and satisfaction and recording the most important events in their life. And they did this to answer this question: what is it that keeps us healthy and happy over life? And the answer is, it's not money, it's not fame, and it's not power. It is our social networks. It is our connections. It is our sense of belonging, what gives us happiness. We are wired for connection. So here are some ideas to work on your social connections. You need to remember this ratio, 3-to-1. It's an important number to remember. For every negative interaction, so let me take a step back. When you have a negative interaction, your brain registers a negative emotion and it releases cortisol, which is the hormone of stress. And when you are stressed, you become distrustful, you become impatient, you become less willing to connect with the people around you. When you have a positive interaction, your brain releases oxytocin, which is the love hormone. And then it's the opposite. You have feelings of empathy, you are better able to communicate and connect with the people around you, and you function better. So remember number 3-to-1 because of this. You need to have 3 positive interactions for each negative interaction that you have. So it's not 1-to-1, it's 3-to-1. Why? Because cortisol takes a longer time to leave our bodies. So here's an idea. If you have a fight with your wife or your boyfriend, you need to remember that buying flowers once, it's not enough. You need to buy flowers 3 times, okay? It is important to express our love and affection, to actually let the people around you that you care about them, that you love them, give them a hug, say it. It's important, right? It's important to spend time with the people we love too. And it's time with the people we love and not next to the people we love. Because when we are all in our cell phones, we are next to the people we love, but we are not interacting with them. This is important too for happiness at the workplace. If you can answer yes to this question, chances are you have higher satisfaction with your work. According to Gallup, having a friend at work is one of the most important ingredients to happiness at the workplace. So what can we do to make new friends at work? It's a good idea to have bigger tables so that more people can sit around and you can get to talk with different people. And it's also a good idea for you to not have your lunch sitting in front of your computer, but actually get up and go to the cafeteria and interact with the people that are around. It is also important to have a good relationship with your boss. So if you are team leaders, remember 3-to-1. It is important to give 3 positive feedbacks for each negative one that you are going to do, right? This is very powerful to strengthen your social connection, and it has to do with expressing gratitude. It's really powerful, and it's very related to happiness, and it has to do with a deep appreciation, with a deep sense of appreciation of life. I mean, being able to notice the good in your life, what you have, what you can do, the people that is with you, the things that you're making progress in, not just focusing on what's missing. And it also has to do with noticing that many of the good things in your life are because of somebody else. Somebody else helped you get where you are. And also, it is important to know that happiness and gratitude is in the small details. It doesn't have to be monumental or shiny or super big to be important. So little details in your life, like a warm bed, your favorite food, a nice message from your boyfriend or your wife, a nice surprise. So it's good, before you go to sleep tonight, think of 3 good things from your day. Something that you're grateful for, something that made you laugh, something that inspired you, something that added something. But because even in the worst days, you can highlight something good. And as I say to my students, when they cannot seem to find anything good, I just said, you know, take a deep breath, and that's the basic one. If you cannot finding anything else, take a deep breath, because that means you're still around, right? And that is something that you can be grateful for. It is especially important to practice gratitude at the workplace. There's a new syndrome around that it's called gratitude deficit syndrome, because we are really bad at expressing gratitude at work. We don't need to say thanks to people, right? Because we're paying them to do their job. But actually, it's really important for us to appreciate a job well done. 64% of people who are thinking about changing jobs mention that the reason they want to do it is because they feel their work is not appreciated. So they feel they are not contributing to anything, or their work is not being noticed. So make a point to express gratitude. Start your meetings with a positive note. Highlight progress, highlight a good comment, a good idea. Say thank you, like thank you to the beautiful music, thank you to the lights, thank you to the sound, thank you to the translator. Thank everyone that helps you do a good job and makes a positive difference in your life. Second way has to do with our attention. Our attention, distractions and our ability to be present. If you think about it, we are being distracted all the time. We are everywhere at the same time, but not focusing on one thing, never. Why is that? Because we're always using our phones, or because we're always multitasking, doing more than one thing at a time. There's an interesting study. I mean, what would you think of a person sitting in a living room of their house and standing up and going out of her house and checking the mailbox like 20 times a day or every 20 minutes? What would you think? That she's crazy? Maybe? Well, according to a study performed in the United States, the average smartphone user checks the device every 6 minutes and a half, which adds to 150 times a day. So I think we are that lady, that crazy lady, right? These are my students. They actually decide to meet at this place at the same time, at that time, but they are never talking to each other. They are always interacting with someone who is far away. I don't know where, but we are always distracted. We are not being present. There's another study that says that we are losing about 28% of our working time to distractions. So that's about a third of our time at the office. So if you think about it, I mean, this stress that we have, that there is not enough time, that we can never complete our to-do list, it may have to do with the time we're losing to distractions and the cell phone. So let's try to not walk in every direction at the same time, but try it in a single direction, and we will go much further, right? So some ideas: have meetings without technology. It'll take half the time because people will be actually paying attention. You can stop checking your email after you leave work, or you can put your phone in silent mode. You can eliminate applications. You don't need 15 applications to check the news. You need only one, right? Or you can set up a technology-free zone. In my house, it is the dining table. So when we're there, we're actually talking to each other. Make an effort to live and enjoy the present moment. So pick up your eyes from your phone and take a look around and notice the beauty around you. Engage your senses, smell, hear. Just make a pause and take a look around. It feels good when you actually do it. There's a lot of things happening around us. People who spend a lot of time thinking about the past tend to be depressed. People who are always thinking about the future are really anxious. And it's the people who are able to live in the present moment, the people who live the happiest. So make a pause, breathe, learn to meditate. Just keep your phone away for a little. And try to be more like your dog. Your dog is happier. Right? One thing at a time. Here's another tip. You all have agendas, right? And you all have to-do lists. See? Do you have a wish list? A bucket list? Maybe you're thinking, well, when I retire, I will go to this place and I will do that, right? It's a bad idea. You have to include that what makes you happy in your everyday life. You need to create happy moments. So here's a simple tip. Make a space in your agenda, in your calendar, for those things that make you happy. Because the nice thing about it is when it's in your agenda, now it's something that you have to do. So bring the happy moments to your everyday life. Next way has to do with learning. Happiness is highly associated with learning. When we stop learning, we become bored and we become apathetic. So we need challenges in order to keep engaged in life. So here are a few ideas. Ask a lot of questions. Listen. Have curiosity. Read. Get out of your comfort zone. It's more fun when you don't know everything. It's actually more interesting to learn new things. So get out of your comfort zone. This is something that we hear a lot. But how do you know when you are in your comfort zone? If you're not making mistakes, it means it's time for you to learn something new, right? Generosity is highly associated with happiness. Kindness makes us feel good. When you do something good for someone else, in your brain, the section or the zone associated with pleasure gets turned on. So helping someone in our brains is equivalent to eating chocolate or buying new foods or receiving a nice kiss. So try to incorporate kindness into your life. And again, ideas are simple. Get out of your way to help somebody. Smile, ask someone, how are you? Share what you know. You can be generous with your time. You can be generous with your attention. You can be generous with your knowledge. You just need to find opportunities to help. They are everywhere. You know, just look around. Connect with people. Ask how you're doing. Help your colleague by sharing some tip that will save time. Connect with nature, connect with animals. Just to get a little out of your way to make a positive contribution in the life of somebody else. Next one has to do with being active, with taking care of our bodies. It's probably very obvious, but it's hard to be happy if you're not feeling well or if you don't have the energy to do what you need to do. So we need to take care of our health. And I'm pretty sure that you learned this in school. These are the 3 golden rules. Move, eat healthy, and sleep enough, okay? It's eating healthy and doing exercise are the cheapest and most effective preventive medicine. And maybe you're probably thinking, well, I work the whole day, traffic is long, I don't have time for exercise, right? So if this is your answer, then just try to inconvenience yourself a little more. So if you're at the office the whole day, try to move a little more. For example, if you get a phone call, stand up and take that phone call or walk a few steps around it while you're talking. If you need to say something to a colleague, don't use the internal messaging system. Get up of your place and go to the office, connect with that person and move a little more. You can do walking meetings. Why? Because we need to stand up a little more. We're spending way too much time sitting, and sitting is as dangerous as smoking. So you need to really take attention of this. You can have walking meetings. So if only 2-3 person and the subject is light, well, maybe instead of sitting in a conference room, just take a walk. Sleeping enough is really important because we tend to treat sleep as a wild card. So everything I cannot do during the day, I will finish overnight. Or I will wake up at 4 a.m. and finish my work. This is a bad idea because when we are chronically tired, our brain gets into red alert. Our central nervous system kicks off, and this is when you start feeling aggressive, you are in a bad mood, you start making mistakes, you are very impatient, you act on impulse, and bad things can happen when you are working on red alert. According to Harvard Medical School, the lack of sleep costs the US economy around $63 billion to lost productivity because people are tired. Their minds are someplace else instead of working. In companies, we tend to glorify being busy. If someone spends the whole night working, we see them as heroes, right? Well, we shouldn't be doing that. The top athletes, the top performance, one of the secrets of their amazing performance is that they sleep more than 8 hours a night. So if they can afford to sleep, you can afford to sleep too, right? And finally, our 6th way has to do with purpose. Happy people, happier people, know why they're here. They can answer this question. What's the reason that gets you out of bed every morning? The people who can articulate a short answer to this question tend to live longer and tend to live happier. And it doesn't have to be a huge mission. It can be making food for family on Sundays. It can be raising a family with strong values. It can be playing music. It can be teaching. But what is your reason? You can think it in a different way. I mean, if you knew you only had 3 months to live, what would you absolutely have to do? Or how would you like to be remembered when you're not here? Because when we think about death, then the important things come up. And it's in those important things that maybe our purpose is. Or you can just follow your curiosity. That what makes you curious will probably lead you to that is super important to you and that motivates you, right? It's also important to know your purpose at work. If you heard from Dan Pink, he's an expert in motivation, he says that happiness at the workplace, and in order to have more engagement and motivation at work, you need to work on 3 things. First one is autonomy. We all like to have a little room to do what we like, to work with the person we want to work, do it when we want to and where we want to, So a little room for autonomy. Second one is mastery, to have the opportunity to become better at something that we really like, something that we enjoy doing. And finally, it's purpose. You know, for people, it's not only important to know how to do things, but why they are doing things. How are they contributing with their work beyond the office? So help your people understand the why behind the work they do. If you're not sure about your why, go and talk to your boss. Learn how you are contributing to the world outside your office. One final note. It is important to know that the goal is not to be 100% happy 100% of the time. So perfect happiness, it's not possible. A happy life and a life full with meaning and purpose includes problems and includes difficult emotions. And that's fine. That makes us humans. Difficult emotions are part of our humanity. So we don't need to aspire to be perfectly happy all the time. We just need to aspire to being as happy as we can, as frequently as we can. You have now many different ideas. If you remember some of them, they are easy. You can do them right now, and you don't have to pay a lot of money to do them. So maybe start today, even if it's Thursday, right? Thank you.
Ópera apresenta ExpoGestão.